I'm here today with Ben Hurle, who's the president of the Victorian UFO Action Group in Victoria. Hi, Ben.
G'day, Sheryl. How are you?
Good, thanks. Thanks for joining me.
No worries. Lovely to see you again.
And same to you. And you've just had a recent a UFO road trip, I guess you'd say, over in the United States. You went to the UFO Congress and all that. So give us the lowdown now on what happened at the Congress, who your favourite speakers were, and why, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Look, I mean, this is my third trip to the United States, and it was my first actual UFO trip to the United States. So I had never done any of those great things, over there, like Area 51 and Roswell. And the whole point of this trip was to have a UFO road trip. Travel for hours on end each day, burn the candle at both ends, come home for a rest, and that's what the trip was like. And it was broken up into three stages. So the first stage was Vegas Area 51. We'll talk about that later. Second stage of the trip was the Congress, and then the third stage of the trip you could basically call Roswell. So the second part of the trip was down in Phoenix at the International UFO Congress. And it's kind of, like we have our events in Australia, but it's really nothing like what they can put together in the United States, just purely through, much larger population base to draw from. So, hence the events tend to be bigger than we can produce here in Australia, which is good. I mean, and so it should be. It was really, and like, the other thing you've got to know about the International UFO Congress too is the fact that it doesn't just go for a day or two, it goes for a week. So you're there in Phoenix for a week, which is mind-blowing in itself to think that a conference could go for a week. And it does. And the Congress has a wide variety of speakers across the UFO spectrum as well, and some of them sort of delve into other aspects around the phenomenon as well. So there really is something there for everyone. If you ever do decide to go to it. And
I believe there were about 24 speakers. I mean, how do you put all of that, jam that all into your brain without it falling out?
Well, it's a lot. It is. It is everybody that you sort of, or a lot of the people that are pretty relevant at the moment. People who have had experiences that are great to talk about, and the theorists, the people who have got theories and things like that. So that's kind of what those 24 people are made up of. And each day you get this beautifully printed document, like this is the Congress program, and each day it lists who's speaking where and when and the times, and you really just rock up to those that you want to see. And as we discussed, you can't literally see everybody. Your brain would be totally fuzzed. And so that's definitely it is really big. They held it at the Sheraton, which is downtown Phoenix, and Phoenix is so hot. It's just you're either in air conditioning or in heat. It's like sticking your head in an oven. So for most of that week we spent our time obviously in the Grand Sheraton Hotel, and it's not just the speakers too. I mean, the speakers is one thing, to go and listen to a lecture, and have question time and that sort of stuff. But the other thing too is the networking. So once the day is over, you can literally talk to any of these people. It's more than possible to talk to any of the speakers at any time, and they are all very approachable, all very giving of their time, and that was one of the really good aspects about the Congress, was the fact that you could find time to sidle up next to someone who perhaps you listened to their talk, or it was someone that you wanted to meet. You could do that. It was a very welcoming environment. It really was. There was no no trouble there at all. People were more than happy to give their time. In fact, getting the time was difficult in the fact that people are in demand as well. So that was probably the only problem. Trying to get time or get quality time was there. But the opportunity.
I liked what Richard Dolan did, actually, in regard to they just live streamed some of him speaking to the people outside.
Yes.
And that's good because you can see the interaction there too. But I imagine that the hot topic would have been around all the footage recently and about was it George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell had to say, and
Yeah,
Commander David Fravor, all that sort of stuff. So what was going on there?
Yeah, it was really very interesting. Like when you look at Jeremy Corbell's documentary on Bob Lazar, it's kind of really brought all that back out again from the depths of the late 80s and early 90s, when a lot of the, like anyone who's been around UFOs for a long time would know who Bob Lazar was. And if you haven't watched Jeremy's documentary, it's on Netflix. And I really encourage anyone to watch it. And when Jeremy spoke, he was very, very passionate about the Bob Lazar story, and as is George Knapp as well. And it was really very, very interesting to see that story retold all these years later, and to see Bob Lazar as Bob Lazar is now. That kind of really was very interesting to see the toll that it's taken on him. And that was really good. And Jeremy Corbell was saying, look, anybody can get out there and do this stuff. Like, he's a filmmaker. It really is just a matter of getting a camera. He said, grab your phone, whatever it is, get out there and talk to people. And that's what I encourage anyone to do as well. Like anyone around the UFO phenomenon, you guys are doing it beautifully in Queensland. We've done it in Victoria. Get out there and talk to witnesses, talk to people, get the inside story, hear it for yourself. You can produce stuff on your phone these days. It doesn't take a lot of technology to do this.
It's amazing.
And truly is amazing. And the other really big thing at the conference was the Kevin Day story with the Nimitz encounter. And that's one of the game changers at the moment too that's out there, the Nimitz encounter. It really, really is a big story. It's been out for a long time. Yeah. The endorsement, the release that it's got, from the American government, from the Navy, the CIA, it really is really showing that they're saying now, look, UFOs are real. Jeremy Corbell's documentaries and James Fox's documentaries are kind of echoing and enhancing that for a broader audience as well, so that people can actually go, it's not, do UFOs exist? They do exist. That's not a question now. It really isn't. Where are they from? And we got to meet all these guys, and Kevin Day was he was on the Princeton, which was with the Nimitz, and got the first radar returns. And when you talk to him personally and you get to spend time with him, you see what a genuine, honest guy he really is. And what it's also good is it shows that for these guys who are in the military who've had these encounters, not just his encounter, but say a whole range of them, there really is now this it's not being treated in a ridiculous way. They can talk about it, and that's really what I think the Nimitz encounter is so great. Is that it's really, when you haven't watched it on YouTube, you need to get on and watch the documentary on the Nimitz encounter. It really is really good, and that for me was one of the real game changing moments at the conference, is when you've got the older cases, like the Pascagoula one with Kelvin Parker, but which is back in the early 70s. But getting to Kevin Day and the Nimitz encounter, and Jeremy Corbell bringing up the Bob Lazar story again, and sitting around with Bob discussing it, like it really feels like there's a new life to ufology now. There's a push forward that is really out there, and the conferences and the Congress was really good for that. You got a first-hand taste from all these speakers, with all their varying topics, that something is really happening at this point in time. That the Area 51 invasion, as ludicrous as that is in practice, all these things are just little pieces of the awareness around the UFO phenomenon that for the broader community is really starting to I think gain a lot of traction now.
I think too, though, with the footage that's come out, that it's important that the history doesn't get forgotten, because there's almost like a feeling, from my perspective, that this is what's important, and it is, but a whole lot of other important things have happened before this, and there's always been people trying to bring disclosure about individuals. Then we've got the Disclosure Project from Stephen Greer. So, this has really sort of grabbed the media. And I did hear from someone who'd been to the UFO Congress, and another Brisbane researcher who went there, that the word has sort of changed around from disclosure now to confirmation. That's the new buzzword. And
Yeah.
so it's, and especially with Michio Kaku coming out recently and saying, you know, the weight for the evidence now is now on the authorities to prove or to show what it is or what it isn't, rather than UFO researchers or the UFO community having to prove that UFOs are real.
Absolutely, absolutely. And even at the Congress too, like they had, and talking about, you said, like from the past, like we had, what was it? It was Tui Snyder talking about the great airship mystery of Texas in 1897, which is taking it back a long way, and looking at all those accounts from around Texas where there's all these reports of airships back at that time, and like that was interesting, you know. And then bringing up to you know, the likes of Kelvin Parker and Terry Lovelace's encounter as the second speaker, like all of that was really good to see that you've got this great balance of the current information. Let's talk about some of the old stuff that perhaps you haven't really heard about before, you know, and just bring that all up again. And by the time you go through a whole week of it, it's just like your head is absolutely spinning with all this information that you've taken in, and perhaps haven't even taken in, because with all the travel and you're tired every night. It's just, and you don't go to bed early at these things. Like, you know, your day starts at about 9 o'clock in the morning, and you're still talking to people at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, it's just one long blur of information, of connection with people and talking to them. And that was really, really good. It was really good to hear from Paul Hynek, who was Dr. J. Allen Hynek's son. We got to meet him and we had dinner with him.
What was the highlight there, Ben?
Well, I think just the name alone is really has a lot of gravity around the UFO phenomenon, the Hynek name, and his talk was really good because he kind of looked at the Project Blue Book series that had been made, and he compared that to his actual family life, and it was just interesting to see how that all came about, and how him and his brother were involved, and how they had the little influences that they had on the show. That was really quite interesting, and you know, you're talking to this, he's a really intelligent guy in his own right, Paul Hynek, and you know, hearing all about it around his father just sort of, it really brings that aspect of the phenomenon up too, with such a great name. And of course his father's passed away, and unfortunately Stanton Freeman wasn't there this year either, and he's been a great attendee of the Congress for a long time. And Kathleen Martin was there, and we had a bit of a chat to her. She's a lovely lady, and you know, it was just a really good experience to be so close to these names that you just don't get to see in Australia, if at all, or hardly ever. So, you know, and the likes of Richard Dolan, who has been to Australia, and Richard was very happy to see us again too, which was fantastic. For the time we got to speak to him, and Chase Koletsky was over the moon to see us over there as well. So I do encourage, you know, the Australians to go, and we did meet a couple of Australians when we were there, but of course, you know, there's never enough of us there because of, you know, time, distance, and all that type of thing. But to be able to go, the money, yeah, well, that's right. I mean, just to give people a bit more background to our trip, the Victorian UFO Action Group, there was actually 6 of us who found the money and the time to be able to go for a 3-week road trip across the United States. So it was just good that we could get 6 of us from Victoria to go. You'd be lucky to get 1 or 2 normally, but we got 6 of us to go, and there was a strong and Glenn from Brisbane. There was a strong contingent of Australians that were that were there, and it was just good to take us to there as well, because, you know, you don't, even at these events, it still basically is an American event for Americans. So, you know, there's not a lot of international people there. We did meet some British people as well, but there's not a whole lot of an international flavour to the International Congress. Like, it's a very American event for Americans, and you know, it would be good if it and maybe in the past they've had other speakers from other parts of the world, but you know, it would be nice to have a bit more of a world flavour. That's just my input on that. That would have been a good thing for us to achieve. And James Fox was there, and James, we spent a lot of time with James, as not just for his presentation, but outside of the, in free time as well. And James is talking about his upcoming documentary, The Phenomenon. And that's going to be an absolutely fantastic, game-changing look at the UFO phenomenon. He looks at the Westall case in great detail. He looks at the schoolyard case in Zimbabwe. He takes a whole lot of these really good UFO cases, Lonnie Zamora in New Mexico. He's just done so much work in the background of all these particular cases, and he's probably brought it together in a way that hasn't been seen in any previous documentary. And I think at the award ceremonies for next year, you wouldn't want to be up against James Fox's The Phenomenon, because I think he's just going to pretty much clean the floor with that film. And he was here in Australia last year, 18 months ago, however long it was, and he filmed with us in Melbourne with the Westall case. So it's going to take the Westall case global in that his film's going to get a theatrical release. So it's not just that film's going to go beyond the Netflix level. It's going to reach another level of the community out there and take it to the mainstream, which is where it all needs to go.
Well, I hope he includes some of the information that wasn't in the original Westall 66 documentary, which I've just found out this week. I mean, I knew from interviewing one of the witnesses that's here up in west of Brisbane about seeing beings coming out of the craft, and actually Shane Ryan confirmed that with one other person he'd spoken to, and so had George Simpson. So this is something that we didn't see in the original documentary, and I think it's he's not going to include that.
Oh, look, I don't know, to be honest. Anything's possible. We'll have to wait and see. What's actually in it. And unfortunately, I wasn't there on the day of those filmings. I couldn't make it because had to work, and it's like a Wednesday afternoon or something when they're out there. So I personally wasn't involved with any of the actual, even though other people in my group were. I personally wasn't involved, which was a bit unfortunate, but that's the way it goes. But yeah, that's going to be a big film, and I think it'll really open a lot of doors again. I could just see a whole lot of things falling over like dominoes now in the next 2, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Where will we be? I think we'll have come a lot further down the trail of you could say acceptability, endorsements, all those things that are I think is coming our way, and it's a really exciting time to be involved in the UFO field, perhaps more than any other time in history. That's what I'm feeling.
Well, of course, we've heard this before. We've had hopes about these sorts of things before, and I'm in two minds about, I guess you'd say, about disclosure. I think there are some things that are, that perhaps we may not be ready for about disclosure, but this is really about the dialogue starting to change the public mind in a bigger way. Do you think that's going to happen? I've been talking to people here in Brisbane, and they say, "Oh, yeah, I heard it all before. It never happens." Blah blah blah. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's happening. I do. I think it's happening. We're seeing in Melbourne now for the first time in the time I've been doing UFOs that the media is starting to take it a little bit more seriously. Like back when I started doing it and had my first media experiences, they were all relatively shocking experiences because it's treated like a bit of a giggle factor. And I can remember doing an interview with Channel 9 News when I'd been on the Today Show, which that was an atrocious experience. But I did a thing for World UFO Day at the same time with Channel 9 News. They asked me these wonderful questions. It was really good. It didn't go to air. So something else bumped it off that night on the news, and I think they put a guy with a squirrel suit on, parachuting over Switzerland instead, which would have been probably my slot on the news. So, but from those times, I think we're seeing now that it's starting to, Studio 10 have done a couple of, fairly good UFO expose. I wouldn't call them exposés, but they've done a couple of UFO pieces, and they've treated it respectably. I think that's starting to happen now, and we're finding too down here that they're wanting to know about our events. not so much to promote our events. They don't really care about that, but they're interested in who we got coming out, who's going to be speaking. You know, is there something that we might be able to get on? And James Fox was on Studio 10 when he came out. So we're starting to get a lot more traction with the media down here, which is great. And I think that, yes, we are seeing it happening. I think that, you know, slowly, incrementally, these things are actually, it is starting to change. It's starting to shift. And in the time that I've been doing it for, you know, in the 10 years now, I've seen that change gradually come in. And I think that if people get on Netflix and they watch the UFO films that are on Netflix, they'll see that there's a relatively decent amount of content, you know, UFOs that is in these mainstream things that people can actually watch if they're interested. You know, they're Unacknowledged and Bob Lazar, and you know, there's other stuff out there too that you can, you know, Patient 17 is the other Jeremy Corbell one, which is really quite an interesting watch. Yeah, so you know, there's a lot of good stuff out there, and it's treating it, you know, in a really good, you know, in a really good way. And I think that for the average person at home who doesn't really think about it a lot, if they just watch some of these things, they might go, wow, it actually is interesting. They've got credible witnesses. It is all starting to add up across the board, and I think we're going to see that just get stronger, and that's just going to. So I suppose I'm being positive rather than having a negative view. Yeah, well, I mean, I think you have to be positive about it. I've always said that disclosure was only ever going to come about when some mothership is hovering over New York. You know, like, you know, that's how I always thought it would take something like that for people to do that. But I'm probably not right there. I think it is starting to come out. You know, there's always people that are doing, you know, affidavits on deathbeds and all that sort of stuff, and all that stuff needs to continue as well. You know, like take Roswell, for example. I mean, nearly everybody's dead around Roswell. So, you know, we've got what we're going to get there. I don't think there's, you know, short of the government coming out and saying, yeah, no, it actually did happen. You know, there's really not much more witness testimony that can come out for Roswell. But, you know, these little things, step by step, what I'd like to see is I'd like to see them discussing it in schools. Like, you know, I don't think they actually really do discuss UFOs in schools in any capacity at all. And I think that's something that's really, really missing in our education system, that, you know, we're happy to dance around some religious themes, and, you know, and we can talk about heaven and we can talk about some of these sorts of things, but you can't really talk about, you know, other entities. And I just think, why in the 21st century wouldn't we be talking to children about these issues? You know, they're the next generation. They should be, you know, they should have some discussion on ET. Yeah.
Well, actually, I have to tell you that I have spoken to school groups, quite a few, over the years.
Oh, that's good. You're doing well then.
It's not in the curriculum. It's not in the curriculum, which is unfortunate.
No. Yeah, and I think that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'd like to see it in the curriculum in some. It doesn't have to be, you know, whole subjects or anything, but they should have some, and choose the appropriate age, and you know, and then imagine what the kids might say. Yeah,
exactly. But getting back to the UFO game changers. Sorry for cutting you off, but
yeah, that's right. Yep.
Because Chase Kloetsky spoke about that, and I think she spoke about abandoning the approach of UFO research in times gone by, where the focus has been purely on the physical aspects of the UFO phenomenon. I find that interesting because we just had Susie Hansen here in Brisbane, and part of Susie's presentation was that she thought that UFO sightings were very important and why we should take them, you know, seriously. And I agree with her on this, in that they often lead to other experiences, because my experience is that although people will see a one-off UFO event, typically they will see, you know, many, or not many, but a few UFO sightings during their life, and possibly behind that there is a close encounter that you know, they're still putting the pieces together throughout their life. So what did Chase have to say about that, about going past the physical reports, the reports of just the physical aspects?
Well, that's sort of, you know, this is where, you know, the whole thing's really leading, and I think Chase is one of those smart researchers out there who's really has got a good understanding of the total UFO phenomenon, and being in what I would call the jump seat in ufology in America. Like, she's been so up there with MUFON, and has done a lot of other research. Even into the elongated skulls down in Peru. So she really is right at the cold face of what we would call the nuts and bolts ufology. But as you can see, and as I think she would say, that there's only so much that's going to show us now. We're not really going to get the smoking gun. I don't think isn't really going to come out of the nuts and bolts approach with the collection upon collection of UFO reports and various levels of physical evidence that are around. None of that's really going to be, and this is what a lot of people are saying this over there, that it's not really going to be the next step. The next step is really getting into the consciousness side of things, the non-physical, because really, I mean, the physical side of the phenomenon is really just what we've been left with as a result of it. The actual phenomenon itself is so much more multi-layered and multi-level than that. And I think that's what Chase is saying, and that that other people are saying, the witnesses are saying, that really we really have to look beyond all of the nuts and bolts stuff, and we have to be looking to consciousness, to other areas that just people are looking into. I think it needs to become more. These facets need to talk together a lot more too.
Yeah, but what I think about that is that it's always been a multi-layered phenomenon. It's just that we haven't been asking the right questions, and we've had to, the UFO community or the band of UFO researchers have had to grow in their understanding, expand their own awareness and their own state of mind to be able to ask these other questions, because in the past they've wanted to keep it very nuts and bolts because they were trying to attract the scientific community. Well, I've said this before, that bus is gone, baby, so that's not going.
That's right. That bus is gone, that's, in many ways, that bus it's been a very slow bus to get on board. They've dragged their feet for so long, and unless you're Bigelow or someone like that, who might be making some inroads with the technology side of things, the rest of the phenomenon, the rest of the world needs to look at it from a much larger perspective. And that's what the whole point of this Congress is. I mean, the Congress is doing that. The Congress is bringing all these people together, so that you've got these opportunities to hear the speakers, and then you can talk about it. You can talk about it with other Congress attendees, with the speakers. It's not just focused on one aspect of the phenomenon. You've got Chase talking about the game changers. You've got the witnesses coming in. You've got the filmmakers there. It's just it really is becoming a conference like that in this day and age has to cover so many aspects of the phenomenon for it to be really, current and, cutting edge, I suppose, in this thing. Like in Australia, as I said before, like we can have one or two speakers come over. But imagine if we could have 24 speakers over here. Imagine if we could achieve that, in Australia. Like it'd be incredible. It'd be really, really good if you could really get the public to want to come along. Not just the people who are into UFOs and all the many aspects of it. You could actually get the people to come along and partake in that in Australia. That'd be great. And I think that's really inspired us here, moving forward after our trip and going to the Congress and having that experience and seeing how the other half live. It's encouraging to do that. And the big problem for us is obviously airfares and accommodation and getting people out here, and getting the money to do these things is really, really difficult. And anyone who's put a conference on will know what a nail-biting experience it is. It's just you've got costs, and you're going to break even, or you're going to owe money. All the financial side of it can really destroy the pleasure side of hosting these events. And I tip my hat to the people who put the Congress together, and it's been done for many, many years, that they've got a great formula for it. It works well. We need more of it in Australia. We do. We really need more of these things in Australia, and I can see no reason why we can't. And even within the Australian community, even within the Australian UFO field and people around that field, it doesn't even have to be strictly UFO. There's other paranormal aspects. There's other people doing all sorts of work out there that Australia needs this type of input as well, because it's evolving. The world's evolving all the time, and we're a part of that.
Yeah, I agree. And but there's I guess we do have to think about, we don't have as big a population, but these are things that perhaps people who are watching who might be interested in helping out with those sorts of things can contact you and me and the Sydney UFO group and jump on board and help us, because at times our teams are very small, which ours is at the moment. Other times they're quite big, and you can only do what you can with the amount of people power that you've got. But let's just move on to your experience with Area 51 and Roswell, and what you went on your road trip. Tell us a bit about that.
Okay, sure thing. So the other thing I want to say also too is that the DVDs of the speakers are available, so you can buy them, and you can track them down online. They'll probably be on the website still for the Congress. So if people are interested in listening to any of those speeches, those DVDs certainly are available, and they'll probably get uploaded onto YouTube anyway. So just keep your eye out for that. So getting back to what you just asked me, So our trip started in Las Vegas, which is in Nevada, which is obviously where Area 51 is. Now, there's one thing you've got to say about Las Vegas is it's just hot. Hot, hot, hot. Whether it's day or night, it's hot. It's just hot.
You think Australians would be used to it?
You would think so. You would think that it wouldn't bother us at all, but when we arrived from the end of winter to the furnace of Las Vegas, and in the end of August, it was just so hot. As hot as Australia. Perhaps the sun doesn't burn as much over there as it does here, but damn hot. So you hop in a car and you drive 2 hours north of Las Vegas, and it's a long desert drive, and again, it's hot. You stop at the last town where fuel is available, to make sure that you got fuel, because there's a little place called Elmo, which is the last petrol station or gas station, if you like, before you hit the Area 51 area. And you drive out there, it's desolate. You get to the extraterrestrial highway. We turn onto the extraterrestrial highway, and that famous sign is there, and it's plastered with stickers from all around the world where people have put stickers on it, and we did our own graffiti on it. And so just to say that we were there. And you then drive on, and you drive on, and you drive on, you drive on. And the road just gets more desolate. It's flat, and there's these mountain ranges, and there's nothing out there except for dust willy-willies blowing across as well. You reach this road,
like
and
home. Sounds like home, Ben.
Sounds like home. Very much like Australia. And you reach this turn-off, and it's where that famous mailbox used to be, the famous Area 51 mailbox, which was actually a rancher's mailbox. That mailbox is gone. It's not there. And there's no signs to indicate in any way, shape or form that down this road is where you get to the gates of Area 51. And this is a rutted, long, straight, pitted, dusty, very unfriendly road for a hire car. And you drive for about half an hour, 40 minutes down that road. And the road just keeps taking you out, and there's nobody around. And you eventually come to this point where there is two signs on the side of the road. And they basically say that this is a drone-free area, warning government installation, no photography allowed. And behind that is these cameras that are sitting up on a couple of, I suppose they're risers or whatever. There's cameras there. And on the top of the hill in the background is a camo dude sitting there with his Jeep and his binoculars staring at you down at the gate. And he's probably about 400 metres away up a hill watching us intently. We had two cars, and we pulled up literally about 3 metres from the front gate area. And they can hear you. They've got listening devices down there. They'll know who you are before you get even. They'll know 5 kilometres away who you are. They'll have read your hire car plates. They'll have done the facial scans. So they will know exactly who's standing outside the front of the gate area there. And you stand out there, and again, it's hot, it's dusty, and there's literally nothing there. And the funny part about it is that the whole Storm Area 51 idea is really just a crazy idea, because if you actually ran across that gateway, if you actually breach that, they're going to come down on you like a ton of bricks. But not only that, you've got to drive another hour at least before you reach a building. So a couple of guys running across the Area 51 thing like they're sprinting across Area 51, you've then got to run another 80 Ks before you even get to where the base is. So the whole invading Area 51 thing is just never going to happen. It's just not a reality. And there's kind of this feeling when you get there that you don't want to. Like, you don't want to go any further. Like, you really don't want to go any further. It's just not the way. And then we left there, and you drive back out and you go around to the little town of Rachel, and Rachel's where the little alien is. And the town of Rachel is literally nothing there except for a couple of buildings and the famous iconic little alien. And so we went there in the afternoon, and it was just a nice little watering hole in the middle of nowhere. And then there's a second entryway to Area 51, and it's about another 20 minutes down another road. And that's actually what you'd consider more a formal entrance. There's a boom gate, there's 2 guard booths there, all the cameras are there, and it looks more how you would traditionally think the area would look. So I'd call one a back entrance and one a front entrance. And we stood there with some other English tourists, and we took our photos, and we danced around the front, and nobody came out. Nobody gave us two seconds of attention, which was really good, because, you know, we got our chance to spend our 5 minutes of fun standing outside the front of Area 51. And we were there 2 weeks prior to the slated event of Storm Area 51. So I encourage anyone to go out there. Like, it's if you're into UFOs, you got to go to Area 51. You just have to make the epic trip to get out there and stand at the front of it, because it really is such an iconic thing, particularly if you've been following the Bob Lazar story. You know, it takes you right up to that part.
And what about Roswell? I saw from some of your photos, it was a bit hard to find the crash site. Was it?
Very hard to find. Yeah, it's very hard to find the crash. Like, Roswell is a town of about 47,000 people in New Mexico. It's about 6,000 feet above sea level, so it's quite high. And it's on this flat, nothing there. It's just flat plain country, cattle country. It really is. And of course, the Roswell Army Airfield was there back in the day, and now it's all private contractors. So we went to Roswell, and we did the entire Roswell experience. We went to Jesse Marcel's house where he had the material, and he laid it out for his son to play with. We went to that house. We went to other houses where other people had seen the object coming across the sky. We went to the old police station. We went to the locations where the old radio stations were. The International UFO Museum is in Roswell, and that documents the Roswell story so beautifully. It really does. You've got to go there if you go to Roswell and check that out. There's store after store of alien knickknacks to buy, and that's another big part of Roswell. But the actual crash site is nowhere near Roswell. We went to the hangar as well, the big hangar where the bodies and the craft were actually purported to have been taken afterwards. And we stood outside the hangar, this old World War II hangar, and with this old base, and you can walk there, no problems at all. And now another aviation company owns it, and it was all locked up the day we went there, and we tried to gain access to it, but we couldn't quite get that to happen in time. But you can walk up to it, you can stand on the fence, and you're right at the building where the craft and the aliens were taken before they were flown to Wright-Patterson base. So there's a whole lot of that beautiful Roswell, urban legend sort of things you can go visit and do in Roswell. But the crash site itself is nowhere near Roswell. It's closer to Corona, and Corona is an hour and a half to 2 hours north of Roswell, northwest of Roswell. And you drive up there, and we had inside information on where the crash site was from various researchers. One we had spoken to at the Congress, another one that we've been talking to, and they told us where the debris field was and how to get there, sort of. And we've got all these conflicting pieces of information. Now, you drive out there, you get to this road, and the road says Trans-West Road, right? And right next to that is private property, no trespassing, right next to the sign. And I'm saying, this is a road, and it's got private property, no trespassing. What are we going to do? Like, you know, is this a private access road, or is this absolutely private property? And James Rigney really says, no, Ben, no, look, it's a public road. And I'm like, oh, geez, I'm not so sure when you got signs like that. Anyway, so we drive down, and this road goes for 19 miles straight down, right? And basically off that road is these other little roads, and there's all these signs: private property, keep out, no trespassing. So you're driving in ranch country in New Mexico, where all these signs are very unwelcoming. And the actual location, or the debris field location, it's just so hard to locate in terms of the GPSs wouldn't work out there. So we had GPS coordinates and they wouldn't quite work. We went in through one particular gate and we should have gone in through another gate. And we spent all this time meandering up and down these tracks out in this hot plain area with trying to find these landmarks as to where it was. And it was getting really late. There was a big storm brewing over the mountains that was coming towards our way. And we'd spent about 5 hours out there. And towards the end of that day, we got some more correct directions, and we were able to get to the actual debris field. And there's a marker at the debris field that was put there by the Sci-Fi Channel in the early 2000s that they went out there and they did a show out there, and they did some digging around, and they put an actual stone marker there. So we actually found the marker and the debris field. And I got these photos of the storm rolling in. We're on the debris field. It was so like that period of time when it crashed. Like, it was such a haunting place to be out there. Actually, on the debris field, we saw where Mac Brazel's house had been as well, where he'd seen the object come over and the explosion. So to get out there took a lot of effort, took a lot of time. It's not a place that the public can go to, in the fact that there's no signage to say that, you know, this way to the Roswell crash site. You've got to know what you're doing. You've got to have the right information. And after all that time we spent getting out there, and the big Roswell trip as well, and it was just a highlight of the trip to say that you've actually made it to the Roswell debris field, which relatively few people probably actually really actually go to the debris field. And just another quick point on that is, the town of Corona is actually only about 20 minutes away from the debris field, and Roswell's about, an hour and a half, 2 hours the other direction. And we spoke to a lady in the truck stop in Corona, and Corona's just a real little blowhole. And she said that the people of Corona didn't want the attention of Roswell. And when you go to Corona, there's literally there's nothing about aliens and the crash, and it's only 20 minutes down the road. So that was quite interesting as well. And we ended up in Socorro that night, which is where the Lonnie Zamora case was in 1964. And that was just about where our trip was terminating, and we flew out from Albuquerque the following day.
And you met Travis Walton as well while you were there?
Yes, yeah, we had. Yeah, look, I've loved the Travis Walton story for many, many years, and seen the movies, read his book, and I'd never had the chance to actually meet the man himself. And and Calvin Parker also as well, on the same par there. And Travis is a lovely guy. He really is a lovely guy. And talking to him, you can see that he's such a deep thinker, and he's always thinking. And I just wonder what's going on behind his eyes a lot of the time, and how much that has changed him as a result of of that experience he had back in 1975. And we went to Heber, the town and the telephone booths where he made the phone call from when he was brought back by the UFO, and we stood at those telephone booths. So we had the real experience at the conference. Travis played guitar for us. So we're sitting up there one night, and Travis is there, and he's sitting down. I'm talking to him, and I had about half an hour or 40 minutes with him, and we're just talking about everything except UFOs. And I think he really appreciated that too. And I sort of said, well, I'm not going to just talk to him about UFOs. I'll talk to him about anything else. And he says to me, do you play guitar? You know, and he gives me the guitar, and I go, just a couple of things. And yeah, very good. So yeah, he was a very generous person, and it was just great to meet someone like that. And then on the other side was Kelvin Parker from the Pascagoula 1973 Mississippi UFO case. If you don't know it, look it up. It's a great UFO story too. And the good thing about these witnesses, and they're the same as the Australian witnesses too, that they are genuine people who've had genuinely strange experiences, and they really are the same as the Australian witnesses. They have struggle around what happened. It affects them for the rest of their lives. We've seen that happen to the witnesses here in Australia, whether it's Westall or Burke's Flat or Mundrabilla or any of those cases that are out there, Tully, whatever. Like, once you've had these UFO experiences, it changes your life. And that's another affirming thing about this trip that we had to the United States, was that people around the world are dealing with the same things. And, you know, as a species, we all need to work together.
So now that you're back in the land down under, and I don't know, how long have you been back? 2 weeks?
3 weeks.
Yeah,
2
okay.
weeks.
So you've had time to integrate all of that, your trip and all the different things I'm sure you spoke about to people. How has just that trip, how has that sort of affected you, or has it affected you? And do you sort of feel a bit of a shift?
Yeah, I do. I definitely do. I mean, I suppose one thing is, like, you can read about these UFO cases, you can read about these people, you can watch them speak, you can read their books, but when you actually go to the locations, meet the people, talk to them all, get to see that they are all human like you are, that for me is really the highlight of the whole trip. And going with the people that I went with, like, I love the people that I went with on that trip. We were bonded. We all had to pull together, and for 6 different personalities to come together and to pull that off as a group was a crowning achievement for ourselves as well. So I'm very proud of the people that I went with. Very proud that the fact that we were able to do it. Proud of the fact that we represent our own country when we go over there. That the Americans were interested in us and our experiences. So it was good to have that experience. To go to physical locations, that's all the stuff of dreams. So has it affected me? Yes, it has. Do I want to go back? Yes, I do. It really just awakens the desire to know more. It awakens the desire to get out there and to do more.
And I agree with you with going to those places and talking to the witnesses. And I know, I've spoken to many community groups over the years, and I sometimes will talk about the Papua New Guinea case with Father Gill, and how the UFOs, he saw a UFO, and he and the mission boys saw the UFO, and these 4 beings came out and stood on the top of it, and one of the mission boys waved to them, and one of the beings on top waved back. And I often say to people, put yourself in that place. Imagine that, and I think that's the thing with, like you did, is going there. You can put yourself in the witness's place, and it becomes more of a reality, and it becomes quite sobering, I found, to do that.
Absolutely, and just briefly too. I mean, when we went to Socorro, and which is where Lonnie Zamora's UFO case was in 1964, and we're standing in the valley where the UFO was on the ground, and his patrol car's up on the hill, and little beings climb back in, and the thing takes off. That's the very example of that. You are in the location. When you're standing in Heber, where Travis made the phone call, when you're standing at the gates of Area 51, when you're standing on the Roswell debris field, there are all those things that kind of make you feel like you're a part of it now, because you've been there, you've had the connection with either the people and the location, or the locations, and it's just such a you know, it's a great experience, and for all the things I've done in Victoria with all the little videos we've made and running around the state, going to different locations, filming things with witnesses, it's just, you do it for the love of it, and you know, it really, you gain so much out of it yourself. So, you know, I like Jeremy Corbell, I'd say, get out there, investigate. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and eye-opening too.
Yeah.
So now you're back in Victoria. And did the whole trip, did it sort of zizz you up to want to have a conference again in 2020?
Yeah. It did. It has. And then, you know, then all the realities of that start kicking in. You know, the fantasy of we need to do an international UFO Congress. We need this here in Melbourne. We need it, you know. And so, look, you know, and we have done, you know, as you were part of, mini conferences and stuff in the past, and we need more of it. It's just stupid that we can't put it together on the scale that it really needs to do it justice. It really is, and I think what I can take out of this trip is that it's motivating to try and take it to the next level.
Yeah, exactly. And we definitely need more helpers. Can't do it without the people power.
You can't do it without people power, and it always falls on the shoulders of the few, doesn't it? You know, like that's always the way it is, and you get people coming in with loads of initial enthusiasm, and then they drift off again. You know, and it happens time and time again in whether it's a soccer club or a UFO group or whatever. It happens. It's just human nature that happens. But you know, you got to thank the core people who will stand up and do the work, who will shoulder the burden for the, let's call it the cause, I suppose. You know, like, you know, for the UFO, you know, the validity of UFO research, the validity of the phenomenon, the fact that we all know it's as real as anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, and bringing it to a larger audience so that this larger audience can go, gee, this really is interesting. You know, this really is something. You know, go to the International UFO Congress, meet the people, get out there, go talk to as many people as you can, read as many books as you can, listen to as many podcasts as you can, watch all the videos, watch all the local videos, not just the History Channel stuff.
Yeah.
Watch the UFO stuff, watch the UFO Research Queensland stuff, watch it, share it, you know, promote it. Help us, guys. Get out there and spread the word. You know, we're all trying to do a genuine job here. You know, we love doing it. Don't make a mistake about that. But, you know, if you can help us get the word out there, by all means, just share everything with everybody. Yeah.
So let's just talk about Victorian UFO Action Group. Does the group actually have an official position statement?
We've done all that sort of stuff in the past. You know, we've had mission statements, and we've had structures, and we've had protocols, and we've done a whole lot of, we did years of work with all of that. And I think what we ultimately found and discovered was that, you know, like you can't be a MUFON. It's just not really going to happen in Australia. And I think that was perhaps our initial thought, that we would like to have been a MUFON type of an organisation, but we don't really want to be that anyway. And I think what the reality of what our group actually is it's a I'd call it it's a gathering of like-minded people who are coming together. This is on a very simple level, and it is this simple, to do our best in three key areas. One is providing a place for people to report a UFO sighting. Two is to do public awareness, which is speakers and events. And three is to make the videos to present to the audience that can't come to the events. So that's really what we do. And I think, you know, being a small group is good, because it gives you the ability to make decisions and change things quickly and fairly easily. If you need to, you haven't got to go through a whole lot of protocols and, you know, meeting and such subcommittees and all that sort of stuff. We don't have that. We don't have that. And I think, you know, as much as we kind of wanted all that, you know, initially, I think the group's better for not having had that type of a structure to us. And our mission has always been to educate and to inform, and that's really what we're trying to do. And we're not trying to make anybody believe either. You know, that's never been an agenda of ours to push and make people believe. I don't care what anybody believes. I really don't. That's their business, not mine. But my role and my organisation's role is to present to people what is, and that's what we're doing. You know, and people can make of it what they will, and I'm sure they do. So, you know, when you take off that thing about, you know, like, I want to make people believe in this. No, I don't want to make people believe in this. I don't care whether they do or whether they don't. We have a lot of fun doing what we do. We have a lot of fun bringing out speakers, and good speakers, whether they be Australian or international speakers. We've been doing it now for a few years. We're getting quite good at it. There's no reason to stop it. There's an audience for it, and the audience is growing. So, you know, it's a long way to the top, and you've just got to keep, as you well know, you've just got to keep chipping away.
Well, the same with UFO Research Queensland is educate, report, support. You know, it's just if people want the information, we can you know, head them in the right direction, and if they've had experiences, we'll support them. Those sorts of things. Yeah. So I hear what you're saying.
Exactly. So, yeah. So what does 2020 hold for us? You know, like we had a bit of a quiet last 6 months, primarily because we were going on this trip, and with all the planning that goes into the trip, and you just got to focus on the trip, and we had to do that. So we didn't really have any public meetings. We haven't done much in the way of research. We've made no videos. So 2020 becomes an open slate again for us to get back on track with the basics, to get back on the investigations, to get back on holding the events, and the Melbourne public is keen, or there's a certain aspect of them that wants to know about these things. So 2020 for us is about getting back to doing what we've done in the past, and with renewed enthusiasm, because you know, as a result of our good fortune that we had to be able to go over to the United States and spend some time with some great friends over there. That was really invigorating.
Wonderful. You need that, and that's why I think having meetings as well, when you can, you know, when you've got the people power to do it, it really, you know, it's getting together with your peers, but also making new connections with the public as well, and gives people the opportunity to come forward and tell their story in a safe environment. I think that can never be underestimated, because if that doesn't exist, they probably won't do it, you know.
True. Oh, absolutely. You know, and you know, anyone can feel like that in, you know, in any aspect of whatever experience they've had, you know, and you know, and we've always respected the witnesses as being, you know, front, core and central to the phenomenon. You know, as I always say, like, you know, we don't have the aliens, we don't have their hardware. What do we have? Witnesses.
Yeah.
So, you know, so therefore you can only work with the witnesses. And when we do need to be putting our best foot forward to try and to give them the support that they need, the validation of their experiences, and then to educate those who are interested.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, Ben. Thanks for that roundup. That's really good for people who are thinking they might like to go to next year's conference. You've given them a bit of an idea of what it's like and how hot it is. We certainly got that.
It's hot. Downright hot. There's no question about it. I basically had a head cold from day 2 because of all the air travel and the heat and the air conditioning. I had this head cold that was with me the whole time. So, you know, it's, as I said, like, it was not a holiday. It was an adventure. It was literally every day doing something flat out all day long. Loved it. Encourage anyone to do it.
Yeah, right. So how does public who've had sightings or interested in getting involved, how do they get involved with your organisation? Who do they contact?
Yeah, well, they can contact, they can look us up on Facebook, where we've got the Victorian UFO Action Facebook page. You can go there. You can go to our website, www.vufoa.com, and we also have a .net as well. We have 2 at the moment. So you can go there. We have a reporting aspect on both websites, and you can submit your reports there, and, you know, we can talk to you further if required. So, you know, there's our YouTube channel. You can hop on and look at the Victorian UFO Action YouTube channel, which is VUFOA TV. That's where all our conferences and all our investigations reports are all on there. So there's a lot of content. There's a lot of ability for people to get in touch with us. Same with Queensland as well. So, you know, it's really good that people have got these abilities to report if they want to do so.
Great. Well, thanks, Ben. Thanks for joining me. And
that's all right, Sheryl. Good to see you again.
Yeah, and we'll catch up again in the future soon.
Yep, no worries. Thank you.